We are so excited to have today one of our great partners, Cactus Feeders. We are just so excited and thankful for all that they do for the students of WT, from the professional development to the support of our events. Cactus Feeders is a great friend to both WT and Career Services. And so I'm excited to welcome our guest speakers. And so I will go ahead and ask if you'll just go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us about the work that you do at Cactus Feeders.
Absolutely. First and foremost, thank you all so much for having me this afternoon. We love coming and we love speaking to WT and our partners, especially during these times, and we have to do Zoom calls and all of that. But I am Alondra. I am the HR Beef Specialist here for Cactus Feeders. A lot of my position, what it requires is campus engagement for every college university that we go to, not only in the state of Texas, but all over the United States. I also assist in a lot of our onboarding, recruiting needs here in the corporate offices, as well as at our feed yards. And then anything and everything in between with people management and anywhere where we need to fill in the blanks there.
Well, great. Thank you so much. Okay, so tell us a little bit about the culture at Cactus Feeders.
Absolutely. So, if for those of you that don't know, Cactus is a beef feeding company. So our main purpose and our mission is feeding a hungry world, our family, friends, and our neighbors. We were established in 1975 by Paul Engler and his family. He had a passion for agriculture. He had a passion for the beef industry. But more than anything, he had a passion for the people in the industry. So we've always been people-centered. Obviously and animal focused as well. Without our animals, we can't do what we do and we can't have a job. But our whole goal and our purpose since the company was started back in 1975, almost 45 years ago, was to feed the entire world, especially as it continues to change. It continues to grow in population, right? And as we see changes, whether it be global pandemics like we're seeing now, and technology advancements, we want to be at the forefront of that to feed a hungry population and help in any way that we can.
So good. So tell us some of the benefits that you would like to highlight about working at Cactus.
Definitely. One of them is absolutely, our company culture. We believe in helping each other out. And there is no right or wrong answer or question, right? So in order to get an answer, you have to ask a question. So we're very open in communication and being able to talk to others. But, additionally, especially for us young professionals, we're looking at what does a company offer. And as a company, we offer medical, dental, vision, life insurance, which is pretty great. We all got to stop mooching off of our parents. But additionally, we are 100% employee owned. So back in 2010, the employees bought the company out from the Englers, therefore created our employee stock ownership plan. And so that has allowed us as employees to be actual company owners. So anything and everything that we make, as far as revenue, we can all succeed together. And if something happens, we're all in it together as a team. So being a company owner allows us to be accountable to each other and really be a team, not only, here, on the beef side, but also on our pork side. We're all on the same team here.
All right, so we are recording this on June the 4th of 2020. And so for those who are watching later on YouTube, I want to provide some context because we're about to talk about a global pandemic, which might sound weird a few years from now, I hope. But Alondra, talk to us a little bit about the current situation for Cactus Feeders due to the COVID-19. We talked earlier and you mentioned that you'd been working from home. You're back in the office now, but I know that there have been some economic impacts because of the COVID-19 pandemic. So will you tell us a little bit about how that's affected Cactus?
Absolutely. Whenever this whole COVID-19 started, it shook the entire world, right? Everyone was put on pause. Everyone was put on caution. that wasn't an option for us. When this whole thing started happening, our team of experts here at the office and across the country got together and formulated a strategic plan how we were going to maneuver through COVID-19. Even though a lot of companies got affected financially, and had to either furlough or dismiss a lot of their employees, we did not. That was never an option for us. Thankfully, we were blessed to be very strong in our finances and our operations. So all of our employees have kept their jobs throughout this. You mentioned I was working from home. Absolutely, I was working from home and answering calls and emails, and everyone at our feed yards here in Texas and in Southwest Kansas were out there day in and day out, sacrificing their time to help the company and their efforts. And then additionally on the pork side, we had everyone there working as a team, but it was never a question of, are we needing to dismiss employees or, do we need to cut back on some items? And so through that, we've been able to see, and we've actually seen some advantages to this. We're about to have a record year in the head count that we have for our cattle in our operations. And so we usually feed about 1 million head of cattle a year. This year it'll be more than that. And so even though we're in this pandemic, Cactus Feeders has been able to be successful. And that's because of the awesome leadership that we see, not only through our executive levels, but also through all of our employees at all of our locations, are both our beef and our pork operations of the company.
So good. So Alondra, we are excited to hear from you as an HR professional. Many of our students who are seeking jobs or internships right now, they may find that the company they really want to work for, that they are cutting back instead of hiring. And so I just wanted to ask you, as our students apply for positions at various companies and they're not hearing back from these employers, in normal times that would likely be an indication that the employer's not interested. But during these tough economic times, the story could be very different. So can you describe this environment from the HR perspective?
Yeah, definitely. It is a hard time for everyone, and being a young professional, we all know the frustrations it is, right, of the pressures of, I need to get a job, I need to get established, all of that. And then this pandemic comes and it's even scarier for everyone, even as a professional myself. My heart goes out to every, college student that is and will be graduating this year and in the coming of, COVID-19. But my biggest thing, from an HR perspective, even though a lot of these companies are on a hiring freeze or, taking that pause, it's important to still be engaged with those companies that you're interested with, and Andy, my boss, always likes to say, the squeaky wheel always gets oiled and all of that. So it's important to keep your name out there, emailing that HR representative, emailing that contact, where unfortunately patience is gonna have to happen here until the world, gets back to the quote unquote normal that we once knew. But my biggest piece of advice is, if you're holding out for that one company, absolutely keep in contact. If there are other companies that you see maybe an opportunity, for the time being right now and kind of getting yourself centered and you're feeling more of that pressure to being more into a company, absolutely reach out, but definitely don't push away those employers that you're really hoping to work for one day.
Thank you. So if our students really need a job, we want to know from your perspective, do you think it looks bad on a resume for them to take a job that may not require a degree if they later want to pursue employment with a company that's not currently hiring?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great question. No, I think it looks fantastic on a resume. Why? Because it shows that student, that candidate is adaptable. Right, is adaptable to the situations that we're seeing right now, and are willing to learn, are willing to be in other positions that might be uncomfortable, might be not what their original plan was, but there's growth in that, right? And so I think it's fantastic if they have that different sided experience, because, you know, then when they come to that company that they're looking for, they'll be able to thrive off of the experience they just learned and apply it into that professional setting that they're seeking.
That's good. And how would you coach a student who has been laid off from their job? We've seen a lot of reports in the news about, you know, layoffs and so forth. So if someone has recently been laid off, how would you coach that student or that employee?
Definitely. Another hard, you know, question, and I don't think there's necessarily a right answer, but one of the biggest ones is, you know, encouraging that candidate, that student, and know that they're not alone, right? We're seeing the highest unemployment rate since, you know, the Great Recession and the Great Depression as well. So they're not alone in this whatsoever. And with that too, even though a lot of companies are laying off, are furloughing, it's only temporary, and it's not a permanent, you know, solution or a permanent problem that we're going to be seeing here. But, you know, also encourage them to look at companies that are hiring, and even though it might not be the ideal company that they're looking for, or looking at, you know, it's a step in the right direction to get back to hopefully one day the position that they want to.
Good. So tell us about the positions that you're currently hiring for at Cactus.
Absolutely. So we have a great entry-level management trainee program at Cactus Feeders. That one is primarily in our feed yards. So we have 10 locations in the Texas Panhandle and into Southwest Kansas. And what that looks like is being out there in our feed yard, in our operations, learning the ins and outs of what makes our feed yard successful, right? And getting that team management experience to hopefully promote them into managers one day, and kind of start the ladder from there. You know, additionally, we also start hiring for interns, you know, or start looking for interns again for the following year in the fall. So that's something that will open up probably, you know, depending on everything, September, October. And then, you know, we always are looking for, you know, and we have it posted on our websites as well, you know, for accountants. We have here, we're expanding our team, which is really great. And so, and we're always looking, right? And my piece of advice sometimes too, their students are like, well, I'm interested in the company, but it's not necessarily, you know, that position, or I've applied for that position. Should I apply for this one? And my answer is always yes to that. If you're interested and really want to get your foot in the door, because even though one position might not be the one that you want, or if you apply for the one that you want, they don't think it's a good fit, you might be a good fit for that other position there.
So I think, Alondra, you've been at our Career Expo so many times, and we appreciate the support from Cactus. But I think a lot of times students pass by, you know, they look at your table and they just assume you're looking for ag majors, right? But you're looking for all sorts of majors. And so I think you alluded to that just now. But, you know, as far as major, you know, are there specific, you know, you talked about accounting. So I guess some accounting majors would be preferred for those positions. But ultimately, I guess I just wanted you to speak to, you know, what sort of majors are you looking for?
Absolutely. We're looking for a vast majority of majors. And I always tell students, your degree does not define you into what career pathway you're going to necessarily go into. I can speak that, you know, for myself, I graduated with my Bachelor of Science in Agriculture, Media, and Communication, and I'm now in an HR position. And so we're looking for agriculture, you know, obviously because of our feed yard operations. So any sort of that, we're looking for ag business degrees. You know, we're looking for those accounting degrees. We also have a millwright portion to our company called Cactus Varied Industries, and that is here in Amarillo as well. So we're looking for mechanical engineers. You know, we have our own IT department here as well. So we're looking for those IT students, and anything and everything in between. While we are an ag-based company, we need everything and every single, you know, degree that any other company would. We just happen to have, ag producer to our title as well.
Yes. So what specific instructions do you have for students who want to get a job with Cactus Feeders? So application process, qualifications, all of those things.
Absolutely. So we have our website that you can always go to. So if you go to www.cactusfeeders.com, there's a tab for students to see. It's under the contact tab. It'll give you a link to our careers page. And my biggest one is probably, especially for those students that are on campuses, not only at WT, but everywhere, reach out to your career services office because they will have our contact information. And so reach out to the, HR person there, whoever that may be, or call their corporate offices and be like, I'd like to get in touch with someone from HR and get some information. Are great ways to get in contact. Or if you have a direct contact, to us or within any company, use that to your advantage, absolutely. But for us, if they have my contact info, that's what my job is to help recruit. And so call me directly, email me directly, call y'all at the career services office so they can get my information and kind of go from there. And then follow up is really big as well. And so sometimes in the hiring process and interview process, it can be a little slow on the employer side. And that's just the way it happens. But always following up and seeing where your application is in the process is also a big step to being hired.
So coach us a little bit, coach our students on what you mean by follow-up, because I think that is probably one of the most awkward parts of the job search, right? Like you don't want it, like it's probably not preferable that they would submit their application right now and 10 minutes later email and ask when they're going to have an interview, right? Like give you a minute, right? So how soon is too soon to follow up? How would you prefer that students follow up? Kind of speak to that from an HR perspective.
Absolutely. So I would think that whenever you turn in your application, my rule of thumb is typically 6 days, 6 to 7 days, so a week. And if you want, something more specific, 5 business days, right? And so then following up, it can either be through, phone call, it could be through email, stating, hello, I am, so-and-so, I applied for this position on this date. I would just wanted to know what the status of, the interview process was, or the application process, and when I could expect to hear from you. And so a lot of students think that employers maybe get annoyed at emails like that. On the contrary, when someone follows up on their application, it's really like a gold star to their name, because that means that they're interested in that position. They're willing to follow up with the employer. And typically an employer should have, if you do a follow-up email, will either email you that day or the next day. And so they'll kind of give you a timeline as to, when to expect to hear from them. And then if you don't hear from them, follow up again. And then that employer will be able to tell you we filled the position, or we're a little behind, or anything like that. But candidates should never feel like they are nagging or being annoying, because that's what we're here for. We're here to obviously hire people. And so we're here to answer those questions as well.
That's good. Okay, so what are the things that you're looking for on a resume or an application?
Oh man, it depends on the job and the description and all of that. But whenever I look at a resume, I like to see the different types of positions that candidate has been in. How diverse they've been in their job. And especially in college, I think, a lot of us worked different types of jobs that allowed us to get really valuable skills that we'll be able to show throughout our professional career. So really seeing those jobs, what you were involved in as a student at your university, And then any additional, volunteer work, all of that. We want to see a real person on that resume, right? And especially as young and new professionals, I will say it's important for all young professionals to know that you won't have all of the experience that you need, so don't be so hard on yourself for that. And know that whatever you have done and is on your resume will show, through your interview when you speak to that person. But definitely your background, as far as the position that you're applying for, your degree there as well, and what you were involved in as a student, and any other volunteer work.
That's great. So you mentioned already that you were okay if people apply for more than one position. So if there are a couple of positions they're interested in, that you would not frown upon that at your company. So I just wanted to reiterate that. My next question is tell us about the interview process with Cactus. So assuming you like a person's resume and application materials, and you think that there's somebody you'd like to talk to, how does that work?
Definitely. So I am the first face that candidates see, or first voice they hear. So my job is to kind of be able to sort through qualified candidates for our positions. From there, I will set up either phone interview or face-to-face interview, depending on location, and where that candidate is. Then, we'll go through, and whenever I am talking to candidates, I say, more than this being an interview, I want it to be a conversation, because I want them to get to know us as much as I want them to as much as I want to get to know them, to see if we're going to be a good fit for each other. And so we have a conversation, after that conversation, and kind of overseeing my notes with them and my interaction, then I will proceed to sit down with the hiring manager, whether that be a general manager at a feed yard, or whether that be our CFO here at the company. We'll go through those resumes together, and then they'll do a secondary interview here at corporate, or whatever location they're needed at, and then kind of go from there. I've had processes that take 3 days to get someone hired. I've had processes that have taken 2 months. And so it kind of just depends on the candidates, on the position, but that is kind of how the interview process goes here.
So Alondra, I think it's interesting because your unique role in that you are the first you're screening candidates essentially for different professionals on the team at Cactus. Give some advice. I'm guessing you have some horror stories about some phone calls you've made, and so help our students, right? Like, you'd love it if they would answer their phone, correct? But if you get their voicemail, so help our students with some good advice.
Definitely. My biggest one is probably making sure that you clarify, time. So, are you Central Standard Time, or are you a different time? I can't tell you how many mistakes, even on my end, I've made, because, I either assume that candidates are just all in Texas, but, we've had a candidate in Ohio, and we were on 2 different, time zones there, in that sort of situation. But definitely making sure that, you set a clear time as time zone wise. Secondly, if you have scheduled a time, make sure you answer your phone, and make sure you're available, 10 minutes before your scheduled interview. I've called and gotten voicemails, and my biggest one, I think, with that is making sure your voicemail is set up, because, things can happen where you might accidentally miss the call. And then the employer calls you, tries to leave a message, and you can't because your voicemail isn't set up. So definitely make sure that that is set up and ready to go. But more than anything, be friendly. It's hard being friendly on the phone, right? Because you can't see the person, you can't see their body gestures, but I can guarantee you can hear someone, their tone, if they're smiling, if they're grouchy, anything like that. It's not that hard to read someone. And make sure that you're asking the questions that you thoroughly want to ask, as far as, that employer's culture, you know, the benefits, and especially because that first round of interviews is many a times with an HR representative. So those are okay questions to ask for sure. And like I said, more than anything, let it be a conversation for both of you and not an interview necessarily.
That's good. What do you think our students should be doing right now to prepare for the hiring rebound that's going to come in our economy?
Man, well, I can tell you it's going, once, you know, companies start hiring, it's going to be rapid fire, definitely. So my biggest piece of advice is to follow up with those companies that you're interested in right now, and making sure you keep in contact with them. You know, and this is a great time for a lot of students as well. If there's a certain area of, you know, the industry or a different company or job that you want to discover, go for it. You know, this global pandemic, I think, really works in a lot of our advantages to really be able to go into a different industry or a different position than we once originally thought. Just because, you know, either hiring professionals are lowering their either requirements or even, you know, kind of changing some of their rules or anything like that to hiring people. So my biggest one is follow up with that company, keep in touch with them, but also don't be afraid to go and discover something that you might have been interested in. And especially in this slower time, you know, if there's, you know, a certain subject, you know, that you're interested in, take a college course over it, you know, even if it's at your local community college online. We have a lot of time on our hands, so, you know, let's make the best out of it for sure.
Alondra, you have such a great story, and so I'm putting you on the spot right now, but you were an illustrious WT alum, and you are an illustrious WT alum. So will you tell students your story about how you ended up working where you are right now at Cactus Feeders?
Definitely. I mean, it was an act of God, I think. You know, his plan is always greater than ours. But I had the opportunity in the ag department to take the senior seminar course with Dr. Key. And part of that course is to do the mock interviews there at Career Services. And, you know, just like every senior, we're like, we're ready to go. Let's walk across that stage. But if we don't do our mock interviews, then we fail the class, you know, and that's, no one wants to do that. So I had originally, I was in this weird part, you know, like every young college kid where you're asking, what am I going to do with my life? And the answer is, I have no idea, but I just paid for this expensive degree. But I signed up for a mock interview with Valero because I thought I wanted to kind of go a different pathway. And then the day of mock interviews, or the day before, Valero wasn't going to be able to make it. So Career Services emailed me and asked me if I would be interested in interviewing with Cactus Feeders. And I was like, sure, let's just get it over with at this point. And so I interviewed with Justin Glegern, who works here at Cactus. And, you know, he asked me, you know, all of the questions. What do you want to do with your life? Where are you from? You know, all of that. We had about a 45-minute mock interview. You know, at the end of it, he asked me if he could keep a copy of my resume that I had handed him, and I said, absolutely. I told him at the time I was interested in the ag communication sector of the industry, and I thought I wanted, you know, to be behind a computer and create content and all of that. So he passed my information along to Wayne Craig here at Cactus, who oversees our Cactus Cares Foundation. And Wayne Craig calls me one day and he's like, hey, I got your information from Justin. I'd like to meet up for lunch and talk about an internship opportunity. And I'll kind of go back. So I was going to graduate. This was in December of 2017. So I had to have a plan. So fast forward to that, Wayne took me kind of under his wing and really threw me into our company culture here at Cactus, and I immediately fell in love with the company. And 8 months later, in August, Andy Etheridge, who is our director, our human resource director, and my boss, approaches me about a position, which is this HR specialist position. And me with no HR experience behind me, is they're like, you really want me? And he's like, I can teach you everything you need to know. And so I knew in that moment I didn't want to leave my company because I'd fallen in love with it, and they were willing to give me a chance to learn and grow and improve myself, that I was going to be a good fit. So here we are. It'll be 2 years this August that I've been with them in my full-time position. So yeah, that's kind of the long version of my story here at Cactus.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that. And I think it's such a great example because as an ag communications major, like HR was probably not on your radar at that time, right? Like you weren't thinking of that. And so here you are, but you're still, of course, communicating with people in the ag industry. So you can see the connection, but I love that story, and it's so exciting, and we will hopefully be able to use this clip with our students who are still mock interviewing with our department. And so we appreciate that, Alondra, and are so proud for you and excited to continue to be able to work with you. So our final question is just, what other thoughts do you have, advice that you'd like to give our students?
Yes, so it's a crazy time graduating college, right? Or being in college, let alone being involved in a global pandemic, we don't even know what, the repercussions of this will be 5 to 10 years down the road as far as employment goes. But one of the biggest things that, I tell young professionals is your story and your journey to wherever you're supposed to be at is different than the person next to you. I remember when I was in college and about to graduate, I had friends that had job offers 4 or 5 months before we even graduated. And then there was me, who I was like, I don't even know what I'm going to do. But even though there's the pressure, right, of growing up and, the famous adulting term, you're still young, you're still learning, we're still going. I'm still learning as I go, and I've been in my position for 2 years. So it's going to be okay. And as much as people say, have patience, truly, I say it. Be patient with yourself. Don't be so hard on yourself. And really my biggest, piece of advice too is lean on the resources that you have, in your backyard, in your university. One of them being career services. I mean, yes, go Buffs. That's literally one of the biggest keys to my professional development, not only while I was in college, but even now. So as a young professional in my career, is being able to lean in on y'all and, having those questions, asking those questions, because in anywhere, your career services team has those connections and they get paid to make those connections for their students. And so make those networking connections with your career services, with your professors, and don't be afraid to ask questions. I think that's the biggest thing as well. I think as young people, we have the mindset that we have to do this on our own and we have to prove it on our own, but we don't. And so, you're going to school to get that, textbook knowledge, and it is about what you know for sure, but it's about who you know as well, and being able to intertwine the two to get you into that next step.
Oh, God. Such great advice, Alondra. Thank you for the time today. We, Career Services just appreciates you so much. And you are always just such a friend to our office, and you yourself are doing mock interviews for us now, which is fun. And so it's really neat how things have come full circle. We're excited, and it's neat to hear your passion for your job and that's really what we want for all of our students, is just for them to pursue their purpose and to find a job that they love when they graduate. So Alondra, thank you.
Thank you, and thank y'all for your time. And it's always a pleasure. And hopefully, come the fall, we can actually, see each other and shake hands.
Yes, yes. At least a fist bump, or what is it, an elbow bump?
Yes, or an elbow, yes, for
Yes,
sure.
okay, good. Okay, I like it. Yes. All right. Well, thank you again.
Absolutely. Thank y'all.